Joining us now, Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. Senator, good to see you. So you're going to have a chance in the next few weeks to push back against President Trump's sweeping tax cut and spending cut bill. You just heard Senator Johnson lay out his concerns about how it will balloon the debt. Other Republicans like Josh Hawley, Susan Collins say they're not on board with the bill's cuts and changes to Medicaid. Majority Leader John Thune can't afford to lose more than 3 Republican votes, gives Democrats an opening to stop this legislation. Do Democrats have a strategy?
Well, I think we're going to make sure the American people understand what's in this bill. It is completely incoherent. The Republicans can't agree on what they're trying to do with it. And the cuts to Medicaid are going to be devastating to rural America and to rural Colorado. I've spent a ton of time listening to healthcare providers in red parts of the state that voted for Donald Trump that are not engaged in waste, fraud, and abuse. They're engaged in trying to deliver health care on a shoestring as it is. You know, no OB services, none of the things that anybody in the industrialized world expects to have out of their healthcare system as it is. And now Trump and his allies are going to cut Medicaid, and it's going to drive a lot of these providers out of business. It's going to make it impossible for people that live a very long way from Denver to be able to get health care for their kids. And I hope we are able to stop it. But if we can't, if the 53 Republicans in the Senate insist on ramming it through, the American people are going to know who owns this piece of legislation.
So you just heard Speaker Johnson say that, I cited the CBO figure, that 8 million people are going to be affected by these cuts to Medicaid. And he said those are just the 8 million who should not be on Medicaid. He said it's more than 1 million people who are undocumented immigrants. He said it's able-bodied males who could be working but are not. You say that that's not true, huh?
It's not true. Look, before I was in the Senate, I was a school superintendent. Most of the kids were kids living in poverty. Their parents were working 2 and 3 jobs. The issue is not that they weren't working. It's that even though they were working, they couldn't get their kids out of poverty because our economy hasn't been working well enough for working people and for the middle class. The same is true in the rural communities that I was just talking about that are being served by those hospitals. And by the way, it's not just about Medicaid. I had a conversation the other day just last week with a woman who's graduated from Western in Gunnison, Colorado, who said, I'm going to be off my parents' health insurance in a year. Is it really true that I'm going to have 2 or 3 jobs just for the privilege of paying for health insurance? That is crazy, Jake. Mm-hmm. And that is the healthcare system that America has today that Trump is going to make worse. Democrats should be figuring out not just how to stop these cuts, but to give the American people a vision for what a modern healthcare system that looks like the rest of the industrialized world would look like for the American people. Because these decisions that we're going to make really do, in the end, it's not about the rhetoric of Speaker Johnson. It's about how it's going to affect people in their daily lives. And I'm sorry to say this bill is going to affect them in a major way.
So you announced
in a negative way.
You announced last month that you're going to run for governor of Colorado, a decision that you say is driven by your frustration with Congress and, frankly, with Democratic leadership. I just wonder, given your party's record low popularity right now, does the Democratic brand help you or hurt you, even in a purple-blue state like Colorado?
I don't think nationally the Democratic brand helps very much anyway. I mean, anywhere. If it did, we wouldn't have lost to Donald Trump twice. You know, I know a lot of supporters of mine and friends of mine are furious at Donald Trump. Are furious at people they think aren't standing up enough to Donald Trump. I am. But I'm also furious at the Democratic Party that has lost twice to Trump. Donald Trump could not get appointed to any job in the state of Colorado. He couldn't get hired on, 17th Street, which is our business street here in Denver, Colorado. But he's been sent to Washington twice to blow the place up because, among other things, people are sick of what they see as the self-interested partisanship there. I think they're sick of a Democratic Party who hasn't been able to show how we're going to address an economy where the middle class continues to shrink and where over the last 20 years we've actually lost ground in terms of, the achievement of our kids in school. we need to address those things. So I think it's very important for us to stand up against the insanity that Trump represents and the chaos that he represents and show that there's something better. But we should understand that there were a lot of people that voted for him for a reason, and that's because they wanted to blow up Washington, D.C. They're not surprised by his corruption. That's sort of a ratification of who he is. And we need to show people something different. I see no reason why Colorado can't be the best place in America to raise a kid. And that's why I've decided to run for governor here, because it's important to Colorado, but I think it's also important to have that positive vision for our country.
Thank you so much, Senator Bennet. Good to see you, sir. I hope you have a meaningful and peaceful Memorial Day with you, with your family.
You too. Thank you, Jake.
Some of